Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you joining us today. I'm Aarti Nagraj, editor of Gulf Business Magazine. And today, for the next session of Gulf Business Talks, we're going to focus on a sector that forms a very integral part of both the UAE's and Dubai's economy. And that's real estate. Similar to all of the other industries, the real estate sector has been hit hard by the COVID-19 crisis. We've seen residential sales transactions dropping. In fact, according to one report, in Dubai alone, during the second quarter of this year, residential sales transactions fell by 48.8% quarter on quarter. Now that's quite significant. And on a year-on-year basis, the drop was 39.3%. But on the other hand, what we've also seen is that the crisis has led to a lot of innovation within the sector. So even when we had the initial lockdown period, what the authorities in places like Dubai did was ensure that transactions can be completed digitally without any issues. We also had developers as well as brokers coming out with a lot of new solutions, a lot of measures to support investors and to ensure that the ecosystem continues functioning. Now, with the impact of the pandemic gradually easing in the UAE, a lot of people are back at work, sectors are functioning again. What is the outlook for the property industry? And I think the very big question on everybody's mind is now a good time to invest. You know, our prices at the low are the prices at the lowest that they're going to be, and has the market bottomed out? Is our prices going to go back up? So there's a lot of confusion in the market, and there's, people are still wondering what is the right way to go right now. So for answers to all of those questions and for more clarity on the property industry itself, we have an esteemed panel joining us today. We have with us right now Afzal Hussain. He's the Chief Operating Officer at Azizi Developments. And we also have with us Mario Volpi. He's the Sales and Leasing Manager at Engel and Volkers, Dubai. We are also waiting for Mr. Ataf Rahman. He's the Director and Partner at Danube Properties to join us. He's just having a few technical issues, so we'll hope that he'll be able to join in as soon as those issues are sorted. But a big thank you to our panel today. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we begin the discussion, just a quick reminder of the format and the facilities that we have. During the session, feel free to post any questions you have. We have the Q&A or chat feature there. So if it's relevant to the discussion, we'll take it up immediately. We also have time for a dedicated Q&A at the very end of the discussion. Please ensure you follow Gulf Business on all our social media platforms. So we are at Gulf Business on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and at Gulf Business Magazine on Instagram. We are also streaming the session live on Facebook. So in case we are not able to answer any questions during the discussions, you can post your comments there and we will try our best to get back to you. And with that, I think we'll start off today's discussion. The first question, in reality, what is the current state of the local real estate market? We know it's been affected by the crisis, but what is the current state of the industry right now? Afzal, what would you say?
First of all, thank you very much for taking me on. It's a very interesting discussion, so I'm pleased to join this. Actually, it is true that pandemic and COVID was something which was unforeseen for anybody. So all sectors of the business were impacted, and real estate was, of course, not an exception. Except a certain few things that were still good for real estate compared to maybe some other sectors that I would mention in this discussion. However, obviously, we as Azizi generally I think everybody felt a quite good, painful situation in the first few months. Then slowly, when we speak about Dubai in particular, government has been excellent in handling the crisis. So it was like a life-threatening situation. So the Dubai government has taken very good step to secure and safeguard the health of the community, which is most important, whether by doing 24 sterilization program or otherwise. So that helped us as a developer, and generally I think all the business sectors to gradually come back to a very decent level of business we are operating at.
Okay.
I can see, I would tell you like real numbers, what we are looking at today at Azizi's, to give you an idea that post-COVID, where we are actually. So of course, as I said, March and April will be challenging. Coming to May, and between May to June, we saw 75% raise on our sales in between May to June. And then from June to July, it was another good raise, similar numbers. In terms of percentage, it looks little high, but compared to 2019, of course, a bit slower still. And this month so far, I have done, I think, 80% of the sales of the last month already. That means I'm expecting another 40% raise on what I did in July. So
okay.
that is a realistic situation that I'm observing as of now at Azizi when it comes to our situation. On the other side, I mean, it's pretty decent. It's improving, and there is a and even I was listening to some other competitors' interview or with the CNN. They had a similar experience, and of course, we are in the market, so the situation is getting very good. Yeah. However, it will take little more time for us to go to a very normal operating level.
Sure. Yeah, Mario, what is your feedback been what do you see in the market right now, and how have you seen it transition in the last few months?
Yeah, I mean, had you asked me that question, I suppose, in April, I would have said it's terrible, clearly with the lockdown and with the inability to do viewings. I mean, that was a real problem. I remember my agents were calling me up trying to organize viewings. Now, of course, we were not advocating meetings. We were a bit scared about, going into people's houses and also people going into, for us to go into their house. Sure. But agents are very innovative, and they did find ways, to be very honest with you. And when you had both parties were willing, then obviously we tried to facilitate it. I mean, I agree with Afzal. Obviously, I'm looking at it from a different point of view. He's looking at it from a developer point of view. I'm looking at it more from a brokerage point of view. We have a very large company with many agents covering a lot of the, sort of freehold and, dare I say, non-freehold areas of Dubai. And we're extremely busy. Leads are up. We've got many inquiries. And this is purely down to the fact that this, and I'm going to call it a crisis, this crisis that we are in is not a financial crisis as such. Not like it was in 2008, 9, 10. This is different, and as Afzal has said, we've not experienced this before. So as we get into what I can only describe as the new norm, how we go about business, how we work. I mean, all of us here are not wearing masks, for example. That's because we're in our office, there's no one around us, so we're able to do that. But in offices, we wear masks. When we're meeting people, we still have to be cautious. We still have to obviously try and social distance. But as we get used to things, this becomes the new norm. So certainly lots of things have changed, but from a business point of view, I share Azizi's point that every month that passed, the market for us or the business is getting better. Of course, it's not where we want it to be. Sure. It is less than where it was obviously last year. But May was better than April. June was better than May. July was better than June, and August has been better than July. So as we go on into the year, and as things improve, now that the tourism has opened up. Okay, I understand not so many people are coming, but at least the skies are open. And if they do qualify with their permits and everything, then Dubai is open. So I think, the market is tough without a doubt, but what we've put in place and how many of my agents are contacting predominantly the secondary market. Obviously, we have developers here, but the secondary market is much more a one-on-one. And the conversations that my agents have been having with their sellers and their landlords is, unfortunately, if your price is not competitive, buyers and tenants are not coming. So, it's a buyer's market, it's a tenant's market, and there's great opportunity. How long that will last, obviously, we can discuss that a little bit later, but certainly, it's been challenging, but it's been quite rewarding as well. So we're quite quietly satisfied.
Just to add on to what both of you have mentioned about things starting to pick up now, could it be that it was just demand that was suppressed during the initial period of the lockdown that you're now seeing the impact of, rather than actual demand growth in the market? Is that a possibility, you think?
Sorry, Afzal,
Yeah,
let me just, I'll just finish off and then you can come in. From a brokerage point of view, I think it's a bit of both.
Okay.
We were having some very good numbers in January and February, and even the early parts of March. So we started the year off quite well. And don't forget, in January, February, we had Expo to look forward to at the end of the year.
Correct.
So the whole of that expectation, if you like, probably was carrying forward. Then obviously COVID happened and everybody was in shock. I mean, a lot of people obviously lost their jobs. A lot of people had salary cuts. So there was that knee-jerk reaction of, oh my God, you know, what are we going to do now? And the fear of the unknown, you know, has caused that slowdown. But like I said, as we get back to the new norm, or more towards normality, people get used to things, either how to live and all the rest of it, and people still need to live somewhere. But from my point of view, I put it down to a little bit of that pent-up demand, like you were saying, Arti, but also the good work that either agents have done in educating their sellers, their landlords, and even their developers. Yeah, I mean, we've been educating the developers to look at their prices too. And I'm sure Afzal will say that they had to go back to the drawing board. And if it wasn't necessarily about the, you know, the listed price, to add value in the payment plans, in the, you know, the DLD waiver or whatever sweetener that they had to offer. So the mixture of those two, I think, has meant that we are now busy. Now, it's important to note, we're busy meeting people, doing lots and lots and lots of viewings, making lots of meetings, lots of appointments. The downside to that is the amount of work we're doing is not commensurate to the results. So, and I think that's also showing, because obviously transaction levels, you know, are down compared to last year. But as all of a sudden we hit the sweet spot for certain buyers and tenants, they're ready to sign, they're ready to pull the trigger.
Afzal, what is your
yeah, actually, you know, I consider homes as a basic necessity. You know, it's not like something, I do understand that investors in the market who really want to get a return on investments, but at the end of the day, home is something which is a basic need, just like groceries, just like, you know, your basic other requirements. So and at the end of the day, it depends upon what type of a product you're offering, what is your location, what type of destination you're offering. So if your product mix is good, you are offering a decent size, good pricing, as I agree with Mario that now it's a buyers driven market. So developers really have to think on what is the type of pricing they offer, what are the types of other add-ons they can do for the buyers to attract them. It's working out. So now, I mean, the fear of COVID initially was so big in the first 2 months that it was like people were just trying to reluctant, and they were reluctant to invest into anything. But as of now, people understood that it's a problem, but it is not something that will destroy the whole world. It's just something we have to adapt. So people are gonna adapting actually, and they are coming out and they are investing their money. They can see that, yeah, this is the best time to come out and buy because things are getting good. You know, number of cases are reducing, things are improving, travel bans, restrictions are getting lenient. So people really think that actually this is a great opportunity to come out. So this has picked up the demand. This is one of the reasons. I think this is the basic reason that home is a basic need. And if you offer a good price in a good location, people will come and buy it because they need it. It's a requirement, basic requirement.
One of the questions that's come up, I think we will be addressing this in more detail later, but the question is from Dr. Hemant Jethwani. He says, with looming uncertainties on the vaccine, COVID, and how Expo 2021 will come up, and then you also have oversupply of residential properties. So how do you see the future market prices on residential properties later this year and early next year? So that is one question. So I think coming back to Afzal, what you just mentioned about COVID, I think that worry has settled down, but it still seems like a lot of people are worried about COVID because, it's still there. The reality is that it hasn't gone anywhere. We have learned to live with it in a sense, but it's still there. There is still that from investor perspective, the worry that, I could lose my job. If you're in the UAE, for instance, you could lose your job tomorrow, and then a lot of people, all of us know a lot of people who've packed up, have been forced to pack up and go back. So that is that concern, that fear that's still there until we have a vaccine. So how can that be addressed? And that's the relating to that question.
As Mario said, this is something that was unforeseen and it scared everyone. So due to that, there has been a fall in the pricing. There has been some painful situation amongst the investors and generally entire world. However, as the things are smoothing, I do expect that things will get normalized over a period of time, towards end of the year or towards beginning of the next year. So I do understand that there has been a fall on the pricing. I mean, it's very obvious due to especially secondary market, the how distressed deals and this and that. However, I would still say that the type of product you are offering and the locations, if you're offering, are good enough, then, like for example, for our products, we have not seen a very big fall in our prices because luckily we were one of the developers that we have a very good portion of our already ongoing pre-sold already. So we really didn't go below on our pricing. It was just a slight, cut on generally to offer some sort of good incentive for the customers. Supply-wise, I would say that, there is oversupply at this point of time. There is always problems in the, again, you have to evaluate that oversupply in what context, like in what product mix. If you have, if you compare like destination to destination, there is oversupply as a whole maybe, but when you compare in between the location that an X company is offering versus Y company, then it's really not oversupply maybe for that particular company. However, it's a genuine thought process in customers' mind, especially the end users, because investors are a bit more educated on how things move in the market. So they are very open up and they are investing now. We can see it very clearly. But when it comes to an end user, yeah, there is a fear. However, like banks are still offering mortgages. You can always resell. There is always ways to secure yourself. I mean, Dubai government has been great. There has been leverage on many things. At the end of the day, still there is a fear. I think it would take a little time, over a period of time that would go away. But yeah, there is a slight sort of still fear in people's mind that still COVID is not gone. But at the end of the day, it's just it's a problem, but vaccine will also come over. There is no disease in the world which is there and there is no solution to it. So I'm sure that inshallah we'll find the solution for this COVID as well.
Mario, what are your thoughts? Is this a big concern, and what kind of an impact does it have on property prices for over the board, across the board? You handle all kinds of properties from different developers. So yeah, what have you seen?
Well, again, looking at it from both points of view, you will see that developers have actually stopped launching, to be fair, generally speaking. Having said that, there are one or two developers that are in the process of about to launch a few other phases, but that was probably based on the success of their launches in the past. Sure. My concern is that the uncertainty, as you said before, of the job market will make people perhaps think twice about taking a financial plunge. Now, of course, like I said, people have got to live somewhere, and they have to weigh up the pros and cons of working and living in Dubai by being either a tenant or an owner. And of course, the answer to that is that if you see yourself in the UAE or in Dubai for a period of 3 to 5 years and forward, then of course you really ought to buy rather than rent, because otherwise you might have the flexibility of leaving and all the rest of it, but from a financial point of view, you are wasting money because you won't have anything at the end of it. And yes, banks are offering very good rates at the moment, so they're enticing people to come. And rates, rates have also come down, and the government has looked to add stimulus with the loan to value rate as well, which ordinarily, we would have been talking about this for days and if not weeks, that the loan to value rate, has gone to 80%. For the non-Emiratis, as it were, for other residents. And yet it came in and it was kind of like, yeah, okay, great. Nobody really talked about it because we had so many other things to think about. So with people unfortunately losing their jobs, and there is a portion of the population, if you like, has gone, is going, which clearly is going to dent. If that population is, dare I say, white collars and not blue collars, then we will have a problem in terms of prices. The doctor who wrote is correct. There is an oversupply, generally speaking, but I also agree with Aftab, a buyer, having to pay asking prices. And also the reason for that is because they've got other competition. So depending on where the property is, depending on what it has to offer, will determine obviously price and people wanting to go for it. So look, every corner you turn, there is a scenario. This is not a one-size-fits-all market. None of us has experienced it before. Yes, there is caution. Yes, there is perhaps more competition for owners to find the buyer and the seller, the buyer and the tenant, sorry. And what I would definitely say is do your homework. If you bought at the height of the market, mid-2014, to date, you are going to lose money. And if you clearly, and nobody wants to do this, but if you clearly cannot afford to take a loss or a hit, then rent it. If you can do neither, there is no point asking your agent to put a property for sale at $500,000 or $1 million more than the market is paying today, just because your OP was a certain figure. And that's what I was trying to say at the beginning. It's a tough gig to educate the owners as to what's happening today in terms of the real fiscal side of things. Of course, they know what's happening, but they remember what they paid for these properties. And, I've got friends who have lost, unfortunately, millions of dirhams. But the stark reality is that they have to either face it and deal with it, or they don't. But there are too many agents that will just take a listing on just for the sake of it, just that he has a listing. And that is spoiling the market, really, because when you look at properties, there can be anything from X, Y, Z prices, and it's the same product because everybody has a different opinion. My message to anybody listening is, if you've got a good qualified RERA agent, listen to your agent. If you don't like what he has to say, it's not his fault, but it is what it is. As Donald Trump keeps saying, it is what it is. It's not a great thing to say, I know, but we have to deal with what we have today. If you don't like it, then you need to take yourself out of the market. So,
but from an owner's perspective, what is the option they have? Let's say they're not happy with the prices. Is it a possibility that, or maybe they're hoping that prices will go back up in a few months? Is that a possibility, do you think?
Look, capital appreciation and return on investment are the two factors that most investors. We'll talk about investors rather than owner-occupier. Look, an owner-occupier obviously wants his house to go up in value as well. He doesn't want it to go down. Because sooner or later he wants to sell it. But those are two things that it's quite tough to have both components happen at the same time. Dubai, UAE still has one of the highest ROIs in terms of percentages in the world when you compare them to Hong Kong, Singapore, London, these kind of areas. You will always find certain places, I'm sure even certain places in America, where you will have more than 6 to 10% ROI. But that for us is the norm, around 6 to 8, 9, 10%, that kind of thing. And of course, but the capital appreciation at the moment, nobody is talking about that. At least I don't believe they are, because there is too much uncertainty. We need an influx of tourists. we need an income of residents. And what we've seen is unfortunate outgoing of residents due to the job situation. So the short term is unfortunately still hard times ahead of us, but that's not to say that it isn't a good time to buy, because the time to buy is always today, especially if you are, I mean, if you're buying and selling, it doesn't matter whether you're in a rising market or a declining market, because you're doing the transaction at both ends. Clearly, if you're a first-time buyer, you want to buy at the lowest, yeah. And if you're only selling and not buying again, you clearly want to buy at you want to sell at the highest. I get that. But timing the market, nobody can do that. You can have an inkling, but you know, people need to decide, is the time right for them? And if they can afford something, there's no point saying, oh, maybe I should wait because there's another 5 or 10% coming off. Nobody knows. Time to come back, and maybe Expo 2020, as it's still called, but you know, in October 2021, might stimulate that. But you're right, the vaccine is super important, and when people are no longer scared for their health and therefore their jobs, that's when they'll come back. Dubai is fantastic, and everybody wants to live here.
True.
I just would like to add a very quick thing on this particular subject. I was just trying to look around that because I did analysis earlier on some time back, so I just found it. So Dubai is priced US dollar per square meter is 5,918. Okay, compared to, let's say, I'm just comparing with some other places. Sydney is 10, Mumbai 10, 10K, I'm in 1,000. So London is, let's say, 29,000. However, the return on investments is 5.19% rental yield compared to all others, whereby it is 2.5, 2.3 like that. So your price, imagine, look at the price, it's half, but your return is double. And then your mortgages rate is like 3.24% for Dubai compared to all others, except London and maybe another, which is a little bit lower than Dubai, but like India is 8.6%. I'm just like as a comparison. So Dubai has always been a very, very good place to invest, whereby you can get very, very attractive rates per square foot and a very good rental yield.
So they, in a sense, it is still a very good market to buy, and you're going to get good yields.
Exactly. Even as of today, it is still giving you a better return on investments, a better mortgages rate for the customers to get a very, very flexible, easy, cheap financing from the banks, and they can afford to have a very good, within less price, a property within a less price, while getting a high return on investments.
But is it that people got used to, let's say, 2014 levels where you were seeing even better returns, so, and very different pricing structure? So is that the reason why, you know, there is some hesitation right now in the market, because you hope to reach somewhere close to those levels? And in reality, will we reach those levels? Is that a possibility?
It would be eventually. You know, it's a demand and supply. As of now, the demand is a bit slower than the supply as of now. So as Mario said, that we are one of a very, very few developers. I think we are considered to launch a few projects that, I mean, on the media, you can see a very few projects we are launching on a proven destination, which I have a very, very good track record on our books. I mean, whether it is Healthcare City, whether it is Meydan, we are just launching another 2-3 buildings. So other than that, generally the supply is being controlled up to much extent now with this price committee that, you know, the government has established, and developers themselves and generally has recognized this fact. And, you know, this for over a period of time, when the gap matches automatically, this is a trade cycle. Eventually the prices has to come up to its level. So
it could
not down by maybe, you know, 40% or 50%. It's not the case, except for a few distressed deals. It is not really the case that you can get a property on 30% or 50% price. It's not really the case. When you go to developers, there's a very, very, I mean, less fall in the prices. So over a period of time, it will eventually come back.
Look, from my point of view, Arti, I just wanted to say, we're in a buyer's market, and the buyers literally are, well, I'm gonna say they're very cheeky. You know, they know what the asking prices are, and they're coming in at very, not all, but very, very low offers. And then they get upset because, you know, we cannot bridge that gap. Now, when the market is rising, and I've been here since 2008, so since before the crash, and I've known people, sellers. So sellers at the time were behaving the same as buyers are behaving now. So it's cyclical, as Afzal says, that, you know, today the sellers are a bit upset when agents bring them these offers. But they are, you know, they are what the market is offering right now.
Sure.
If somebody sees the value in a property, especially an end user, then of course they are more likely to pay a little bit more money because they're buying the unit more from an emotional point of view. How does it feel like? You know, can I see myself having a dinner party eventually when we can have dinner parties? You know, here, can I see myself, you know, looking out from my balcony or whatever out over this golf course or view or whatever? So people buy like that. Whereas investors, it's very cold and calculated. What's the service charges? How much is the property? What's the rent? What's my ROI? So it doesn't really matter what the color of the kitchen is. Doesn't matter, you know, whether the bathroom has a window or not. You know, these kind of things don't matter. Can the agent rent it, and what's the ROI? So people look at them from two different ways. So will we come back? 100% we will come back eventually. It's that when, because you ask that to 10 people, you get 10 different answers. It depends from their perspective as to where they are. Obviously, estate agents, brokers like us, we're always ever the optimist. Yeah, you're going to ask me a question now. Now is a good time to buy. Hell yeah, it's a good time to buy. Of course, I'm going to say that. You know, if you ask someone else, they may say, oh no, maybe wait a bit, because maybe they might come down a bit. But like I said before, timing the market is really, really dangerous. And by the time you've decided to pull the trigger, prices have already started to rise. This is, you know, this is the uncertainty. So I think I'm sure it was Warren Buffett that said, you know, buy when people are selling and sell when people are buying. You know, be fearful of the market when everyone's buying. In boom time is not when you should buy, it's when you should sell. Right. But it's timing that's so difficult right now. But, you know, we're optimistic for the future.
So lots of quotes, Mario.
Sorry.
No, but a question that's come from Joseph Bhaskar, and I think this relates to what we were just discussing previously. He says, is it still a good time to invest in real estate with a lot of uncertainties ahead? Do we have the guarantees for these rental yields? So the rental yields that you mentioned, he's saying, are there any guarantees? I think that's a fair question to ask. Afzal?
Yeah, it's a very fair. The only guarantees, as they say, you want another quote? Death and taxes. There you go. There's another quote. That's the only guarantees you have. Look, there are some developers that are offering guaranteed returns. Now, either they have very, very deep pockets, or they have, or they know something in the future and are able to offer these guarantees. So there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's another one. The prices that you're paying effectively could be slightly inflated to then cover the guaranteed period. So do your research. But at the end of the day, I think you'll find that the market is such that whether it's down or up, it will find its own level. It's as simple as that.
Afzal, what would you say?
I would say straightforwardly, as of today, we are offering 7% return on investments on our projects. I mean, we have done our study. We are sure that we will easily achieve this for our customers. So we are actually offering 7% as of now. And if you see generally in the market, like if you calculate, I mean, at the end of the day, still as of now, with the rents falling, there is rents falling. There is some apartments which are vacant. However, at the end of the day, the investors are still getting a good return on investments. Like if an apartment is vacant, something else, but if it is on a rent, it is already at more than 6-7%. Gross. So I think that, and adding to your, it's linked to the same thing that next year there is, Expo. Okay, it was supposed to be this year because of this current situation. It is moved to the next year. So how many number of millions of investors and customers and visitors Dubai is expecting. So in reality, specifically for Dubai itself, for sure, the next year is going to boom out. There is no logic that it wouldn't, because a lot of demand will come in, and with this many millions people coming into the country, there has to be an impact for all the industries, and real estate is not an exception. And we definitely expect that next year would be a very, very good year for all the businesses, including real estate.
One thing I wanted to come back to, which I'd initially mentioned in the introduction, moving away, about innovation, whether because of the crisis we saw, Mario, you mentioned about how, a lot of agents were looking at digital viewings. There were lots of innovations that kind of came up. DLD, for instance, ensured that all transactions could be conducted digitally. So did this crisis lead to long pending innovation in the sector, and is that something that we can see more going ahead? Afzal?
Truly, it is actually, digital transformation. This is the future anyway. We at Azizi, we had implemented Salesforce. We are upgrading all our systems. We have, but this particular time has pushed us, and maybe I think all the businesses, to adapt to the technology more than before what they were looking at. It has become like a forced necessity. You have to do it. If you want to have a business, you have to be digitalized. So we did a lot in the last 3-4 months. All the property transactions were based on the virtual tours on our websites. We have to provide such platforms for our customers to sit at their home. However, they can view the property, they can through Zoom and like this. Even now what we are doing is all, online. So this is the new way out. So we have to do, and we have done it, and it has really benefited us. So a customer sitting at his home with the virtual tours and visits, they have selected their properties. At the end of the day, I would still say that when it comes to buying a real estate product, because people are buying home, they really still want to come out and look at it. Because it's like, as Mario said, it's like an emotional attachment to your home. So it doesn't really fulfill by just viewing something online or virtually. However, it has helped maybe 80% of the objective has been achieved by doing this. And the Dubai Land Department also, we were worried, like for some of our mortgages, I got a lot of money from the mortgages even on the COVID-19 time, because the mortgages were processed online by the DLD. That was a great initiative. So truly, we have to, and we have done, and maybe all the other businesses are adapting to the technology more. And this is the future anyway. So we cannot beat machines as human now. This is the reality. We have to adapt to that.
Mario, do you see? This is a cheeky question from my side, but do you see technology?
If I can just say that, yeah.
Now, I'm saying, do you see technology taking away your job? So if they're going to be virtual viewings and people directly doing everything online with the developers.
Sorry.
Can you hear me, Mario?
Okay. Honestly, I only heard every third word there, but look, if I can just mention from my part, look, this forced way of working now with virtual tours, video tours, whatever, was before it was not. It was more like a gimmick. Now, when you are not able to physically go and view a property, then of course all of a sudden everybody were requesting virtual tours and what have you. I think the one thing that seems to have died down a little bit, because as people are allowed to move around a bit more, and maybe it's more that we're dealing with perhaps more end users. I mean, from a developer point of view, I can see, a brochure, they see a floor plan because the thing may not be built. So it's a colder purchase in that respect. But
right.
The person wants to look through the window. He wants to see where the sun goes up, where the sun sets, what is the view. What could be the view? Could something be built in the front? There's so many more aspects to it. So it's helped tremendously. And we encouraged our agents here to do live viewings and video tours, even to the point of view of picking up the phone and just doing it yourself rather than doing it professionally. For me, I was explaining to people, not so much for the people that are here, but for the people that cannot travel. And I think that's where this situation has pushed, especially the Land Department, to look at innovative ways of finishing the transfer. And I mean, Afzal spoke about it a little bit before, but remote transfers for me is the way forward. We might be a little bit away from proper blockchain technology from the point of view of smart contracts and actually concluding a transfer remotely. My understanding is that the Land Department has actually stopped that at the moment. They've paused it because they're working on something. Now, they're always coming up with innovative ways of helping, the brokers and the real estate industry. So I hope that when they come back to the table with whatever it is they're working on, it will help the transfer to happen, dare I say, remotely somehow. Maybe they are working, but this business of the trustee offices having Zoom calls like this with a person at the other end of the world, money has transferred into escrow. Obviously, it takes longer. In fact, we're doing MOUs that before used to be 30 days. Now they're 45, even 60-day MOUs to allow for the period to finish, for the process to finish within this longer period. But I welcome that for sure. There was a communication also the other day from trustee offices that estate agents, brokers can now be power of attorneys, which helps. But I need to clarify, obviously, they cannot be party to the commission, as it were, but agents can be power of attorneys now, which helps. So bringing people together that maybe cannot come here for whatever reason, maybe they're also still scared to come, despite the fact that we are open. Anything that makes that transaction easier is, for me, I would welcome that. So I'm looking forward to see what the Land Department actually brings in. But for me, that was the key to all of this, because now as we come to our norm and we do viewings, all the rest of it, people do want to see property, and so that's why viewings are up.
So the question which I asked, which I think you missed, was, will technology take away your job? So it seems like no.
Sorry, I did not hear that, I tell you. Would it take away my job? Well, I think a younger man will probably take away my job rather than the technology. But look, I remember, I'm that old that I remember the internet coming in. I remember working without a mobile phone. So we often worry that these disruptors do clearly take things away. We are a people industry, and the ATM machine, the cash machine, people thought was going to be the end of the teller. The end of the teller is different now. Internet banking is now removing tellers, but the ATM machine has been around for 30 years or however many years. It's a long time, and it never stopped people going to banks. So people will still want to have that human interaction. There will be some that don't, and I understand that the online market, literally these tech entrepreneurs who don't want to talk to anybody can click, and they can buy whatever on a Bitcoin. Yeah, that in my generation is not going to happen. Maybe in the future, but right now I'm more concerned about other things than that. That's for sure.
I think we're almost, we just have like 10 minutes left, and there are lots of questions as well. But my final question is, what are the trends going ahead? We've discussed briefly about technology, but we've also spoken about, it being a cyclical industry. So where are we at right now? Is it that, and as journalists, we constantly talk about this, has the market bottomed out? So, it's a favorite one for us, but it is something that there is a lot of interest in to know whether the market has bottomed out, whether this is from here on, is it just the way up? And also, as a mature market, are we going to see the variations that we saw in the past, or is it going to be kind of a bit more stable going ahead? So what do you anticipate?
You want to answer that, Afzal, first?
I would go with you first.
Okay. Look, from my point of view, the sign of a mature market is where we have stability. And these peaks and troughs that we've seen in the past is not normal. Now, the financial crisis of 2009, 10, whatever, this was a world problem. It wasn't just a Dubai problem. And now we are in another crisis. Again, you can say it's a world problem, but it's not a financial one. And so these sort of anomalies, if you like, come once in a while, maybe once in a lifetime. You do get your increases where things accelerate. And when prices start to accelerate up, again, the owners start to behave then as the buyers are behaving now. And they are adding to that. They're throwing fuel to the fire, which is why then governments like we had in 2013, they started to put, you know, the transfer fee up. So it was more expensive to buy. They lowered the loan to value rate. So they didn't add stimulus, they took it away. And that, to be very honest with you, did the trick. Because if we remember in 2013, we also got the Expo results. It was like a triple thing that was happening, and the government had to step in to stop the bubble from bursting, because nobody wants a boom and bust. And what they did was very, very good. Some could argue pre-COVID, actually, that it was time to maybe stimulate the market again and to ask for banks to be a little bit more freer with their money and, for example, increase the lending rate, which has now happened, but it's happened because of different reasons. So, you know, are we at the bottom? Personally speaking, I think probably there's a little bit more to go. But I would also caution that if you are looking to buy, if what you're looking to buy is very popular, there's going to be other people looking to buy it. So there you are sitting around thinking, I'm going to wait, you might miss the boat because other people will buy it. So maybe there's a little bit more to go with supply and demand, with the uncertainty maybe of jobs, etc. But there are many good things to look forward to, just like Afzal said. We've got Expo coming up next year. And let's not forget, it's the 50th anniversary of the Union. I mean, there's going to be a big, big party. And if I know what this government will do, it will add that stimulus to entice people. I just hope that by then, there will be a vaccine that will enable people to travel freely, so that even if, God forbid, they catch COVID, you know, or there is a vaccine to counterbalance that. That is my hope. So I think a bright future, but steady as she goes is what I would.
Afzal, what would you add? Have we bottomed out? Or
again, I would back to the basics that I started with is at what location? Within Dubai, there is several locations, you know, and several products that are being traded. So it depends upon at what location you are buying. If you are buying in a location, as Mario said, which is prime location, so you have more customers over there. Maybe even you have already seen prices going up a little bit on particular kind of products and unit mix. If you are looking at a product at a different destination, maybe you can still expect another 5-10% downfall. And my point of view for a buyer would be that, you know, let's say if you are looking for a 10% downfall in the price, why don't you buy today and you make a maybe 5 to 10% return on investment for the up to 1 year, you know, to cover up your downfall, even if it happens. So if you are getting a better opportunity to buy as of today, when the now market is picking up and things are getting better, it's very highly unlikely to me that prices will drastically fall or something very unfortunate. No, it wouldn't happen. To me, it doesn't happen. So we are, if not at bottom, we are maybe very close or we are already there. So it's very difficult for prices to go very below than what we are at today. It's really unlikely.
Thanks. I think with that, we'll come to an end of the discussion. I'll come to the questions that are there. So from the audience side, if you have any further questions, please send them through and we'll pose them to our panelists. So one question, another one from Joseph Bhaskar is, I think this relates to what we just discussed. What's the current cycle of real estate out of 4 market cycles? Recovery, expansion, hypersupply, and recession. So I would guess we are in a recovery mode. Would that be right, Mario? Would you say we are in a recovery mode or are we in a recession mode, according to the 4 he's mentioned?
He's talking about the normal cycle. We're not in a normal cycle, and that's the problem. I mean, we were definitely in a recovery mode, for sure. At the beginning of the year, we were starting to see. But the fact also that there is still this uncertainty lends me to think that I wouldn't call it recessionary, but cautionary is what I would say. And that is stopping the whole wave of people just jumping on board now, because there are still people who are still hesitant. But like I said right at the beginning, each month that passes, and long may it continue, we are improving as a company, maybe even as an industry. But as a company, we're doing better than the month before. So if I just take that snapshot, then definitely we are in a recovery. And as people accept the new norm, and that's what I was trying to say before, the new norm of living, the new norm of shopping, the new norm of going to the cinema, the new norm of traveling. If we accept this, then we get used to it. And when we get used to it, it ceases to be a problem. So yeah, I would say a recovery. I would say, yeah, in a recovery position, again, with a little tinge of caution, because we've never had to experience this before.
Right. Another question is coming from Jamil Khan, who says, what percentage of residential property values are being offered now compared to pre-COVID times? So I'm guessing the question is, how much percentage lower are we compared to what we were at earlier? Afzal, what have you seen on you mentioned it's not substantial. So what percentage would you say is it roughly?
In secondary market, it sometimes is substantial. That Mario can elaborate it further more. But when it comes to developers, I would say it's not really much in terms of the pricing. The pricing is just certain add-ons will make it maybe 5 to 10% extra incentives, whether you are giving DLD free, like 4%, that the developer is paying on behalf of the customer, or let's say you are offering them a return on investments like we are offering. So it will have a hit on us, maybe in case, like it is like always a risk assessment that we do and we go ahead with those things. But on our pricing, it's really not much, maybe 5 to 10%, I would say, from the developer's point of view. From secondary market, yes, there are still products that have been offered substantially low prices. However, that has decreased in the last 1 to 2 months time, and I think gradually it will decrease further.
The percentage. What percentage roughly were you seeing, Mario? Would you say the price drop?
Yeah, look, on the secondary market, again, it depends on the circumstances of every individual person. But generally speaking, I would say prices have probably come down from last year. I would say about 10 to 15%.
Okay, 10 to 15%. There's another person who's asked, always, who says, concerning the property decline in the ready properties in Dubai, we agree, but do you really believe that prices have declined for the off-plan properties? So is it off-plan properties that...
Well, I know Afzal is going to mention obviously about Azizi, but I can just tell you from what I'm seeing, the developers are only or tend to be selling their ready stock. Because you talked about trends earlier on. The trend actually is for ready stock, whether it's secondary market or primary market. People want something that is there, built. That is a trend. And they're also looking for either slightly bigger or properties with gardens, or, you know, that's why townhouses and villas are perhaps more sought after at the moment, because we never know whether we're going to have a second wave or another issue. We all talk about a vaccine, but actually we don't know whether that's going to really work for years to come. Forget the fact that, in Russia they say they already have it.
Yeah.
Clinical trials, it takes time. So people are now looking at, in case this happens again and I haven't stuck at home, I want to be able to go out. Now, if you have a balcony, that's already a bonus. If you have a garden, a bonus. Now, of course, now it's hot, but you know,
Yeah.
winter will be nice. So from my point of view is that these developers haven't necessarily, they looked at certain prices, but they haven't necessarily dropped their prices as much as maybe the secondary market has. But what they've done is they've added incentives. Pay 10% and move in over a post-handover payment plan. And this is what people want. 3 to 5 years they want to be able to pay, because there are some people that cannot get mortgages or are reluctant to get mortgages or don't qualify for mortgages for all sorts of reasons. Because the best payment plan is a 20-year mortgage. You can't get a better one than that. But some people don't have that 20% or 15% or whatever it is to put down. Whereas 10%, now we're talking. And that's where the trend is. That's where people want. They want ready properties, either secondary market or through developers. And I'm sure Afzal will agree with me.
Yeah, that's true. We have seen a very much increased demand on the ready stocks that we have, and we are lucky to have a lot of them, and a lot of people coming up with our maybe 6-7 projects getting delivered in the next 4 to 5 months time. There is a increase in the demand for the ready stock, which is very much, I think, natural with the people thinking on this COVID thing. And yeah, that's true. I agree with that.
So is there still demand? The person has again said it's not about demand, but what is basically the question, I think, is prices for off-plan, are they the same or have they declined?
Well, of course, for a ready property, I mean, if somebody invests in an off-plan, what's the objective? That when it becomes ready, there is a slight increase in the price. So it's natural. I mean, at the end of the day, a ready property in a prime location would offer a better pricing for the customers, as I mean, for the developers. And for a customer, it is beneficial that at least they have a comfortable place to just ready to live in. At the same time, you know, they are benefiting on reducing their rents right away, or if they want to rent it out to have a better return on investment. So I think not even now, generally people prefer to go for a ready property unless the off-plan is being offered at a good price and a good location. So it's very much natural, I think.
But are off-plan prices lower than what they were earlier?
I would say again location based, but there is a pressure on the off-plan though compared to the ready properties. But
would you
pricing
agree, Mario?
is something, again, I would say it is location based. If the location is a little bit far away or it doesn't really offer some sort of attractiveness to the customers, there is a pressure on that. So effectively, there is a downfall in the price.
Reduction. Okay. There is another question from Dr. Hemant who says, how do you see the rentals on studios next year? Mario, how do you see the rentals on studios next year? How do you see the rentals?
Repeat the question. What are the rentals?
How do you see the rentals progressing on studio units next year?
Okay, well, I guess that all depends very much on the influx of new people coming to take up jobs. Because we talked about job losses, that's fine, that's happening today. Right. But as we get better, then job opportunities will be created, hopefully. And if these jobs are created and they're not necessarily picked up by people already living in Dubai or whatever, then people will come from abroad. So the trend is for bigger properties, to be very honest, because of what we said. But that's not to say that studios don't have balconies as well. But my answer to that would be, it really depends on the level of population that comes. Because if everybody leaves, and these are bachelors, for example, single men and women who don't need 1 or 2 bedrooms, they're quite happy with just a studio, today that fills a niche. But if these people either, unfortunately, have lost their jobs and are not coming back, then, you know, unfortunately, the prices of studios will have to continue to decline to attract whatever has been left behind.
Sure. Another question from Dr. Hemant, and I think with this we'll come to an end. It says, with rentals declining, why are maintenance costs not pro rata reducing?
Well, all I can say from that is that the good news is that RERA is regulating the maintenance, and of course they have to approve them. So if there is an increase on the service charges, then RERA would have done their due diligence and actually approved it for the merits that needed approving. But I would also add that this is a bit of a problem here because we have a lot of absentee landlords. We have a lot of landlords who don't live in the UAE, and they think that out of sight is out of mind. And so when the owners association sends them the bill to actually pay the service charges, they just naturally forget about it. So, you know, so this is a big problem all over. It's not necessarily that the service charges are high, which in some cases it can be, but you've got to look at what you're getting for your money. If an owner does not believe that the service charges are commensurate to the level of service that they get in terms of facilities, then they should write to RERA and question it. But now, you know, RERA do cover that. So I think there is at least that safety net. But if everybody paid their service charges like they should do, then these owners association would have the money to be able to create maybe even a slush fund or something to help for the fabric of the building when it comes to then doing repairs. My concern really is the fact that a lot of these buildings are falling into disrepair and no one's doing anything about it because no one's necessarily paying up. They're happy to take their rent no matter how low, but they're not necessarily contributing. So somehow that has to be addressed. It's a tough one because we could do a whole episode just on that. But, you know, certainly by RERA now having the reins, I think it's a step forward. But yeah, if no one's happy about it, they should complain to RERA.
Afzal, something you were looking to add?
Yeah, sure. Just, I mean, factual situation on actually RERA has, with introduction of this MULAC system, now everything is online. All the money from the service charge has been collected into escrow account, and all the contracts for the facilities management with the owner associations are being audited. I mean, there is a highly regulated culture that has been developed over a period of last 1 to 2 years time, and it's progressing faster. Now all the billings are going through RERA system to the landlords. And in this COVID, actually, RERA has, you know, make it lenient for them to pay service charge. There has been some sort of relaxation for them.
Okay.
And there are certain steps actually practically RERA has overtaken. For example, on certain buildings, there were receptions before, and it's been removed to just try to lower down the service charges. So there has been steps that even regulators taking over, and the developers also are trying to do it, because at the end of the day, if your service charge per square feet are higher, a customer doesn't get attracted towards to buy that particular property.
Correct.
So I guess that over a period of time, this problem will also get over.
I know that I said that was the last one, but there's one more comment. So I think and this will just keep it very brief. It's from Jawad Amiri, who asks, where are the top 2 locations for villas and buildings in Dubai in terms of retention of value if you enter now?
I wouldn't comment on that. I would leave it to Mario.
Yeah, well, what you need to know is that the areas I cover is Dubai Marina and the Palm, and apart from villas on the Palm, I don't really cover the villa community, which is a shame. But look, talking it through with here, I know the sort of Al Qudra corridor, if I can work there, from let's say even Arabian Ranches to Moudon and Sharma, Damak Hills, Dubai Hills. These kind of areas, I think, are areas that people should look at. These are communities. I mean, if we take Dubai Hills, you know, they've got schools, they've got hospitals, they've got malls, they've got metro. You know, look at the community. If the community is offering, you know, great facilities, I think that's where people should look. I mean, there are many more, and I haven't even mentioned them. But if you are, as long as you're close by, you know, Dalal Al Ghaf in Majid Al Futtain's development, for example, is close to Motor City. This is nearby. It's not hundreds of kilometers away. You know, these are the ones. Connectivity is really, really important.
Afzal?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, I said that this question would be preferably answered by Mario, because I would say, look at Azizi, come buy from us. We'll offer you the best destination in Dubai, whether it is Healthcare City, whether it is MBR. This is just next, maybe like 10 minutes drive from Sheikh Zayed, 5 minutes drive from Burj Khalifa. It's just behind, and it's Medan. It's the best location ever in Dubai, and it's reality, I mean, by the way, just one more thing on the studios. Like, I really wish I have more studios in Riviera to sell. I don't have. So, answering to the question on the studios. So, studios will do well. Don't worry. I mean, at the end of the day, it's something that somebody can always have it for his own privacy. So, for us, it is doing very well. I mean, and generally, for the townhouses and this, we don't really offer, but generally there are many good options in the market.
Okay, fair enough. And with that, we'll come to an end of today's session. Thank you so much, Mario and Afzal. You've given a lot of insight into the market, and I think the way ahead for a lot of people. There is still some confusion, but I think the one standard thing from both of you seems to be is that this is a good time to enter the market right now. A big thank you to all of our audience members who were here today as well. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. If you have any further questions, feel free to send them to us, and then we'll pass them on to our panelists. Thank you. Do let us know your feedback, and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.